Are you wondering how to tell if your husband is a sex addict? You might be confused. I'm going to give you some information to clarify and help you understand what sex addiction is. Something that happens all the time in my work is somebody comes into treatment and they don't want to be there. Their spouse is dragging them in. And it happens a lot with sex addiction. A sex addict doesn't think that they have a problem, yet the spouse is struggling and suffering in the relationship. And they have this friction with each other, this debate about how bad it is or how bad it isn't. I'm going to tell you exactly what I assess for to indicate whether or not there's an addiction or not. And as I tell you that, it will help you to understand whether or not you're married to a sex addict. Being married to a sex addict can take a toll on your relationship. At the end of this video, I'm going to give you a resource that's going to help your relationship so much. One of the first things to consider about whether or not you're married to an addict or not is their levels of shame and defensiveness. Shame, disconnection, defensiveness is a sign of addiction. So if you're in a marriage where you feel disconnected, where you can't go deep with your partner, it's because there's a lot of shame there. That shame is the root of their addiction. Somebody can be what's called a dry drunk. They cannot be using alcohol, yet be acting like an addict. This is what that means, is when they have those attachment issues in the relationship, it shows that there's some levels of addiction going on. So that's something to look at. Something to look at is the rate and duration of their use. How much time and energy and even money are they putting into acting out, into this habit that they have? And just notice their rate and duration. It can be hard to notice it as a wife because they'll be hiding a lot of things. They'll be trying to manipulate you so that you don't see it. It's not your job to hunt it down, to notice everything that they're doing, but just take a step back and pay attention. How often are they disconnecting and acting out? Another thing to look at is their tolerance. Are they pushing certain limits? Did their habits start with one thing and now it's led to another and another? Things are getting more explicit, more risky, more dangerous. Notice that and just pay attention to whether or not their tolerance is building up. That's an indicator of addiction. If you're finding these tips helpful, make sure that you subscribe because there's a lot more relationship videos coming. The next thing to look at is unmanageability. Are they getting all kinds of consequences in their life, but continue to do the same thing over and over again? That's a sign of addiction. Is their work suffering? Are their relationships with their children suffering? Even their relationship with you, is that suffering, yet they continue to do the same behavior? That's a sign of addiction. The next thing to look at is isolation. Are they isolating more? An addict who has a lot of shame and who is getting their needs met through their addiction, they start to disconnect from real people. So if your husband was very connected to you when you first got married, but now very isolated and tries to spend a lot of time alone, that's a sign of addiction. Another thing to consider is how well they cope with emotions. If they started their addiction at a very young age, then they actually missed out on learning how to cope with hard things in their life. Do they turn to their phone? Do they turn to sex? Do they turn to video games in order to deal with life? Because if they are, what they're doing is numbing out. They're not coping, they're numbing out. That's a sign of addiction. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you found it helpful. Now, I've developed a free resource that takes you way more into depth and gives you some real tools to reset your relationship. So please check out the link in the description for that free resource. See you next time.